here. Down. We will. Where is it? Record here.
Recording in progress.
All right, ready. In 3, 2. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very special joint edition of the Bleav in Iowa and Bleav in Iowa podcast. I'm your host, Brady Beaton. We have a new co-host, Dominique Daphne. We'll get to him in a moment. But we are joining Bleav in Iowa State with Tyler Carter and Cody Van Slalom. Did I get that one right?
It's Van C. Lalom.
Van Slalom. Okay.
Yep.
Apologies for that. But Tyler, Cody, thanks for doing this joint Cyhawk preview with us.
I am very, very excited to be on. This is one of the biggest games of the year. It's an honor to be on here to talk ball with you guys.
And I'm sure no one knows that better than Dominique Daphne, former Hawkeye. Very excited to have him joining the Bleav in Iowa team. Dom, I'm really excited that you're here, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun over this football season.
Yeah, it's a big week. Let me just say that. Growing up in Iowa, I'm excited already.
So let's, Dom, why don't you take the floor to start? You played in this game. You know what it's like. What is it like going through hate week, going through Iowa State, the Cyhawk week? What's it feel like in the locker room? Because it's got to be a little different.
You know, it always boils down to who you rooted for when you were growing up because, I mean, they get you when you're young. I mean, from preschool to 12th grade, which side are you on? What are you doing? There's a third guy who's like, oh, I'm UNI, but, no one hears him anyway. But it's always it's always the start of the week. You know what week it is. The feeling on campus, feeling in the locker room. We got really one of those that was like, we're gonna be able to talk. We're gonna be able to talk shit all year, and we're gonna be able to talk shit. We're gonna hold that trophy over you the whole year. We're gonna be able to talk to you football, basketball, no matter what it is. Oh yeah, but we won the Cyhawk trophy, so it matters to everybody in the state of Iowa. So, I mean, as soon as this week starts, you feel it on campus, and you absolutely feel it in the locker room.
Well, let's talk about Iowa State first because both sides got the win, but it almost felt like Iowa State did it in more of a way that Iowa's done it the past few years, the win over North Dakota State. Tyler, Cody, whichever one of you wants to start, what's the Cyclone feeling after that win in week 1?
So, honestly, there was a little bit of an overreaction, a little bit from the fan base. It seemed like half it was doom and gloom, but you got to understand that Matt Campbell likes to play that type of ball to where the game is in no danger of it being lost. But usually when we're up by like 2 or 3 scores, we usually will sit on the ball and then basically just run the ball. Take time off the clock, play defense until the clock runs out. So it was basically like clockwork. The main difference was the start of the game, because our new offensive coordinator, Taylor Mauser, he wants to be a guy that wants to open up the offense. So it took all of us aback when the first play of the game was a pass downfield. We were like, holy cow. It went against everything that Matt Campbell does. And we were like, holy cow. And and they scored the first touchdown in 38 seconds. And then, after that, everybody was elated. Oh, we're going to destroy this team. And then defensively, it was just a little bit of a struggle. Unfortunately, we lost one of our best players, Caleb Bacon. He's out with injury right now for an indefinite amount of time. So defensively, it was a little bit of a struggle. The defense was out there on the field for a lot of time. It was a lot more bend don't break. So I mean, we got the win, but it wasn't pretty.
Yeah, I mean, being there in person, I think what really kind of took the energy out of like the fan base was definitely the Caleb Bacon injury. And then after that, during the North Dakota game, North Dakota went on this like 23 play, 88-yard drive that took up almost 13 minutes of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, although we kind of really bent during that drive, we only gave up a field goal, so it wasn't too concerning. And then we did get a touchdown to end the half, and I think we were pretty comfortable with that because if our defense was able to limit like North Dakota to only a field goal, even after going on that long of a drive, I think our staff was okay with like kind of let them move the ball, but like not letting him score a touchdown. And I mean, this is what I think is expected. Like this is what I've expected out of Matt Campbell a lot of these years. Like we don't tend to really open up the playbook too much, and sometimes it's a blessing, sometimes it's a curse, but not opening up too much before conference play, because that's just been the way Matt Campbell has rolled his entire time here in Ames.
Well, no, you're never going to show, or you don't want to show a lot in an FCS game, but I think Dom and myself felt the same way at halftime of, oh boy, here we go again. And then the second half happened.
Absolutely.
And then the second half happened. And I guess the question on a lot of people's minds, is it fool's gold? Is that something that's attainable? Can Cade McNamara make those throws against FBS opponents? Because if he can, I mean, Reese Vandersea was the star of the show. He was the talk of the town after that game. But, Dom, I know that first half was here we go again, and the second half was we are so back. It is going to be a good year in Iowa City.
Absolutely. Seeing it 6-0 at halftime, I'm like, oh, my goodness. New OC for this? Like, this is what we got new OC for? I thought we were doing something different. And then, of course, the second half, again, you don't want to get too excited because it is FCS. It is week one. So, you kind of want these games to get the butterflies out. So it's good to see that there is a little bit more progression in the second half. But, of course, week 2, week 3, week 4 is only going to get better as far as your opponent. So hopefully we can get that ball rolling a little bit earlier than the third quarter. But, I mean, it's good to see the offense doing what it should do, and that's score points.
I think the one thing that I'm not sure how much of a factor it plays is not having Kirk Ferentz there. If it was just Tim Lester getting used to the offense, the guys getting used to what he wanted and getting their feet wet, or if there's an actual factor of Kirk Ferentz not being on the sideline, if that plays a part, or if that's just kind of just something that's a distraction that really doesn't matter when the ball kicks off.
I feel like he's more of the icon at this point. He obviously brings his energy regardless, but it's like when it's offense, defense, you're kind of playing your game. You're not really looking to KF to kind of bring the energy. I mean, he does on his own accord, but it's like, obviously it's going to be different. They're already making it a thing where it's like, oh, KF's been released, they got him out of jail, all this stuff. Like he just got released from prison. So it's like, it's something to use going into this week, but I feel like it's just like outside noise.
Right. Well, because if a coach like Sean McVay isn't on the sideline, that makes a big difference. He has his hands so far in everything. Where Kirk Ferentz, like you said, is almost like that figurehead type coach now. And he brought in Tim Lester to be the OC, so let him be the OC. For Tyler, Cody, our Iowa State friends, did you get a chance to watch the Iowa game at all? What were your thoughts from the other side of the rivalry coming into this week?
So from the other side of the rivalry, like when I watched the first half, I'm like, man, we've heard this whole entire offseason about this Tim Lester hire, and I'm like, here we go again. And then I saw Iowa score again. I'm like, okay, is Iowa going to get to 20 points? And then I'm like, Iowa got to 25 points? And then I'm like, 40? And I was like, oh my goodness. And then everybody saw that at the end of the game. And then, like I said, everybody was freaking out. Oh no, we're going to get trounced by Iowa because they could have scored 40 points. So it was just a progression of disbelief for me. I know Cody will probably have the same type of probably reaction.
Yeah, I mean, I think of that really, the first half, it was like 6-0. It was like typical Iowa. And then it looked like after that, like there must have been some like major adjustments. And I mean, Cade McNamara all of a sudden was just slinging the ball. I mean,
he looked terrible in the first half. He looked terrible in the first half.
Right.
But you're right. He just kept going. I guess for you guys, what was the concern level of this game before Illinois State and now after seeing Iowa actually put up some points?
So the concern level with with the Iowa game, because honestly, depending on how we do in our first game will always depend on our mood in the Iowa game. That's why this game sort of sucks. It sucks that this game is the second week of the year. So like even though playing an FCS team, depending on how you do, it's gonna be like, oh crap. If we played bad, then we're like, oh, we're gonna get killed by Iowa. But like, yeah, I think it's a little bit 50-50. Some people think that we don't that like saying that we're gonna lose. Some people think that we still have a chance to win. So I think really it didn't really change much, to be honest. There's some people who have set in their minds that we're gonna lose to Iowa. So like,
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's just a typical like just put this out there. I mean, that's just a typical pessimism. I don't know if it's like true pessimism or it's just them like trying to cope with what is going to happen. I mean, again, there is precedent to it. Iowa State has in fact lost 7 of the last 8. But I mean, on paper, it doesn't look horrible. But I think we may get to this later. But I noticed something like there was a trend in these games, like the past few games. Iowa State has outgained Iowa, and their average yards per play are like between 4 and 7. It just comes down to those those minute details, like those major momentum shifts, i.e. turnovers. I mean, we saw last year. I mean, Rocco Beck, mind you, this was only his second start, but he did have that major pick 6 that Sebastian Castro took to the house, and essentially from there, Iowa just sat on the ball and they won the game from there. So I think that's one thing like that maybe is why, because we're all like, I saw like this thing on social media where it's like, all right, what's going to be that one thing that happens to Iowa State that's going to be the backbreaker and that's going to have us lose this game? And that thread to me was pretty funny, but it's realistic because there always seems to be that one thing that happens to Iowa State that results in Iowa State losing Cyhawk.
I think that's the big thing that we go into every time we play Iowa State is let's not make a mistake and let's not beat ourselves. Let's wait for them to do something wrong. We're kind of the sense where it's funny you say you were kind of sitting on the ball against North Dakota because that is Iowa's bread and butter right there. Let's get up a couple points, get up a couple scores, and then that's what we do. Like when we're playing against a team like Iowa State where you guys usually have really good skill players, receivers, running backs. It's like you guys want to throw the ball a lot. You guys want to get the ball in the air. You want to score a lot of points. You're all obviously in the Big 12 where that's pretty normal. People getting up to 35 plus points on average. So it's like once we get up 7-10 points, let's play smart. Let's play Iowa football and let's let them make the mistakes and then we can increase this lead. But we're not going to do anything out of our character to then have turnovers and then gain momentum because let's be honest, Iowa State is very momentum driven. So it's like when they're playing good, they look amazing. But when they're playing bad, it's like, oh, here we go again, another 6-6 or 4, whatever it is. Like here comes another season where all of our hopes are just going to nothing. So it's like that's kind of the mindset that I know KF carries going to that game. It's like let's get up, let's play our ball. It's not. I know it's a big rivalry, but let's still play Iowa football at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean that's really like how it's been, and just I feel like it going into that game, at least the last 7 out of the last 8 times we've been trying to play Iowa's type of ball, but like you said, you can't out Iowa. And I feel like we've been trying to play that type of game with you guys, and we failed every single time. I'm like, I just.
Well, I guess my question would be: is that going to be the same trend this year? Is there going to be a change in what Iowa is, where it's not, hey, ask your defense to make 12 stops a game, maybe set you up for some points? I mean, again, if this offense can just give you 3 touchdowns and a field goal. So, and I don't think that's asking for a ton in college football, but 3 touchdowns, get in field goal position 1 time. Can that be what Iowa needs to do to take that next step and not have to win these want to rip your eye out punt fest games where you almost are required to get a pick six or a strip sack. Because the one thing that we still haven't talked about, at least from the Iowa game, the defense still looked absolutely fantastic.
The defense is insane.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Mhm.
Like Illinois State, when it was 6-0, it didn't even feel like a game because they didn't sniff the end zone. And I think that's something that's lost. That hey, Iowa actually scored points, and I know it's Illinois State, and it's not, you can't take a whole lot, but Iowa's got some dudes on that defense like they normally do. So if Iowa's offense can get you to 20 points, they're probably going to win a lot more than they lose this year.
Yeah. I mean, I've always seen this. Like, I mean, I'll say it. Like, I mean, I grew up in the state of Iowa. I grew up in Des Moines. So I was like literally like born and bred in this rivalry. I got pulled either way. And one thing I noticed from like both squads is they are good at something. And Iowa is kind of like, doesn't matter like how bad like their offense, the defense is always going to give you something because like under Phil Parker, Iowa has consistently been one of the best defenses in the country. So that's just something like that's kind of like true to Iowa. That's kind of like their identity is to play ugly smash mouth football. And sometimes you got to win. You win ugly. It doesn't matter. You still won at the end of the day. But
and even if the offense can just be okay, that's what that defense has been with them being put in ridiculous situations. If the offense can at least give them, hey, a little more time on the sideline, and when they do punt, keep them deep in their own territory, yeah, that's just going to help the Iowa defense even more.
Yeah, definitely. Now, like for me, like I'm also from out of state. I'm from the Chicagoland area, and I went to school at Iowa State. But for as long as I've been watching them, because right where I'm at is Big Ten country. Yeah, I mean, even since like when I was a kid, or then like the early 2000s growing up, like their whole entire mantra has never changed. And the fact that they're still playing this brand of football in 2024 is just absolutely amazing. Like it is, and it still works.
So you guys mentioned trends. I when I was looking through doing some research on this is one I've noticed. So Iowa is ranked coming into Saturday. I think in the coaches poll they're 23, 21 maybe, but they're inside the top 25. Iowa's been ranked going into the Cyhawk game 14 times. Do you know what Iowa's record as a ranked team was in the Cyhawk game? Out of 14 games. They're 13-1 as a ranked team coming into this. Their only loss was in 2005. So when Iowa's had a really good team and is supposed to win this game, they've usually won this game.
Right.
Well, that's another thing is like when you look at Iowa in their whole history, they don't usually lose games they're supposed to. That only happens every once in a while, like when we lost to North Dakota State back in 2016 by a field goal. Like we weren't supposed to lose that game, and we lost it. So it's like that's kind of the mantra that goes on from winter workouts to spring ball to summer workouts to fall camp is like play Iowa football and don't lose games. Like you can't win if you're losing. You're losing. You're putting yourself behind. These holding penalties, these false starts. Like if you can't win if you're too busy beating yourself. Essentially. Right. So it's like that's a lot of the reason why you see them 13-1 when they're ranked is because we're not going to go in here high energy. We're not going to go in low energy. We're going to come in how Iowa comes in, and we're going to play how we're supposed to play. Like there's not much that you'll see on the game plan where you raise an eyebrow. It's like, okay, this is the same stuff we did in camp. It's the same stuff we've been doing all year. Let's not get too crazy about it. Let's go in there and play our ball game and come out victorious, take that trophy home, and win once again.
So I guess from the Iowa State perspective, for you guys, what has to go right for Iowa State to pull off this upset and get the win on the road in the Cyhawk Classic?
So, at least for me, when like times that we've beaten Iowa, I realized that the times that we have when we didn't play like them, we've spread them out. Anytime you can spread Iowa out, we've had a lot of success. So a lot of zone runs, a lot of a lot of like slant plays, and then when an opportunity presents itself, maybe throw a deep ball.
Mhm.
And I think taking chances when they're available, and also just not being afraid to make mistakes. Because I was going to make you make a mistake. It's really going to depend on how you respond to it. Because if you're just afraid and be cautious, I mean, Iowa has the game won right there. But I think for us, I think um, being able to set the tone from the first start of the game, whether that be a pass, maybe a pass down the seam or maybe a deep ball, something like that. I think that's going to be a key to just set the tone during the game. And I think defensively, I think if we are able to get pressure on Cade McNamara, since he's not really Cade McNamara is not really that mobile, I think we have a chance with our defense and our front seven to get after him, and I think that will bode well for us.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I just hearing like, yeah, speaking back on the McNamara not being as mobile, I think there hasn't been too many games while he's been at Iowa that he's shown to be able to pick apart like really good defenses. So I think the idea is, yeah, you kind of like don't want to really allow him to pick apart defense, but also you do want to speed him up just a little bit, make him a
Mm-hmm.
little uncomfortable in the pocket, and that's where that front seven's going to come in. Now, obviously, we mentioned earlier some key injuries to our defense, the Caleb Bacon, and looks like more than likely, as far as I'm could know, is looks like likely Jack Sadowski, Cooper Ebel, and I think Ellis. Can't remember his first name,
Yeah,
but that might
Jacob Ellis. Yeah,
Jacob Ellis, yeah, that may likely be our linebacking core. And I know that Iowa may try to run the ball on us and try to exploit those defenses, but those weaknesses. But I think especially Jack Sadowski, he saw playing time last year, so he knows what it's like to play in
mm-hmm.
this defense. And Cooper Evo obviously has been pretty good. Now, outside of Jacob Ellis, you also have Kale Brazina. Now I know some Cyclone fans are pretty high on Kale Brazina at that linebacker spot. I mean, I've seen some of his like training camp stuff. He looks pretty good. Obviously, he struggled a little bit in that North Dakota game, but again, it's his first game. He's a true
Right.
freshman. Of course, you're gonna have those struggles, but I think just finding that. I think this is going to be the main thing for Iowa State. It's finding a good balance of aggression, like finding that right balance of aggression and playing smart. You don't
Right.
want to play so conservative that you kind of like you're afraid of making a mistake that you put yourself behind the eight ball so early. But also, you don't want to be too aggressive because that's where Iowa excels in is capitalizing off of your mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
So Iowa State can
Mm-hmm.
find that perfect
Right.
balance, and I think Taylor Mauser has mentioned something like this, like finding that like right balance, like knowing when to take advantage of a weakness in Iowa. I think that's going to be how Iowa State picks up the upset.
Well, the one thing you mentioned is Iowa might just want to pound, pound, pound. But Dom, you can correct me if I'm wrong. One of the shining stars of that week one was the receiving core between Leitchie, the tight end, Vanderzee. I thought there were two or three guys on the outside that really showed up when McNamara could get him the ball because those guys were open in the first half. They were just missing them. So I think if you're going into this game expecting 45 run plays from Iowa, I think you're going to be a little surprised.
Yeah, I feel like I said earlier, that second half was really telling. I feel like we're going to be able to open up the playbook a little bit because if the game would have went how it was going in the first half, we're probably going to go into this second game like, ooh, I don't know if a lot of these plays can make it to the next game because Iowa State likes to play that 3-man on the roof type of defense, so we can't really just put balls in the air like that. They're just going to get picked off, and obviously, like they said during camp, McNamara wasn't the most accurate person, so it's not like something that they want to do so extensively. But after seeing that second half, I feel like they're going to be able to, take the roof off a little bit, still have a lot of play action, still have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
your short routes, your basic routes, your stick routes, slant routes. But then, of course, as soon as just like 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3, we're going to maybe be able to take a shot down the field because we trust these guys a little bit. They
Mm-hmm.
showed me something in the second half where I could take these deep shots. I can be confident in our quarterback to make these plays. And then, of course, Caleb Johnson and all the running backs that we have, we got honestly 3 deep at running back, going to be able to do what we need to do once we get the opportunity to do that. And if they're going, they're probably going to lean on them. But if we have an opportunity to take the roof off, they're going to.
Well, I know that Vanderzee was the one that took the headlines. I thought Jacob Gill had a pretty nice game as
Yeah,
well.
he did.
The one pass that I think inspires confidence more than most is the throw McNamara made across his body and the
corner
Jacob
route.
Gill touchdown.
Yeah.
That was the one where he had two receivers on him that made you go, all right, maybe there is something here.
Well, it lets you know that McNamara trusts his receivers because he threw it before he was open. If you watch the end zone copy, like he was behind both of the DBs, but made it, finished the route, got out in front of them, got open, and actually made a really good catch. So I guess that kind of shows you that McNamara trusts him a little bit.
All right, guys, you guys have anything else for us from the Iowa State side? What are you expecting from this game? Do you think Iowa State has the shot? What are you feeling going into it? I'm not going to ask you for a specific prediction, but is it going to be a close game? Do you think Iowa State's going to struggle? Do you think they will surprise a lot of people and maybe pull off an upset?
So I think for me, I think I have more of an optimistic perspective. I think Iowa's going to keep this close. I believe 7 or 6 out of the last 8 meetings have been decided by one score or less.
Well, neither side can score more than twice in this game.
That's true.
Yeah.
So yes,
Can't win by 3 scores when you score 14.
Yeah.
That's very true. Yeah, but I do think that Iowa State has a chance to pull the upset. Just with everything that we were saying in the previous segment, I do believe that Iowa State has a chance to pull out the win.
Yeah. I mean, it just comes down to limiting your mistakes, but also not being too scared of the moment. Rocco Beck, I mean, I mentioned it obviously. Rocco Beck even knew after that pick six he threw, he knew he can't make a play like that. And he stated it. I think Rocco Beck is now more comfortable as the QB, and I know he can trust his receivers because I think Iowa State has one of the best receiving cores in the Big 12. I mean, Jalen Knoll, Jaden Higgins, Ben Bramer, Gabe Burkle. I mean, even Eli Green had some flashes in the North Dakota game. So, and then you got Isaiah Alston as well. So I think it just comes down to Iowa State not being too afraid of the moment and knowing this is a rivalry game, but you obviously Dominique said earlier, you just got to play your brand of football, play well, and then take chances when they open up. Take those chances because you don't know if those chances are going to be the difference between you winning the game and losing the game unless you take them.
Right.
Mm-hmm. All right, Dom, from the Iowa perspective, you feeling good going into this one?
I do. I feel like they're going to come into the game feeling good, coming off that very good second half. Like I said earlier, I feel like they're going to be able to play their brand of ball. You know, they got KF back, so they're going to come in there with some energy, and it's at home this time, so Kennick's going to be rocking, of course, just like usual. So I feel like they're going to be able to run the ball pretty well. Like they said, they got a little injury on defense, which it doesn't make it seem like it's a lot, but when in this type of game, when it's going to come down to a play or two, it's going to matter. So I feel like I'm pretty confident in what Iowa has. I'm very excited for what they showed. And then the second half, try not to be too excited. It's first week. So it's like I'm excited, but I'm also understanding this rivalry that it's usually closer than what you think. It always is. Iowa State always comes to play. Iowa always comes to play. We always joke that Iowa State, this is their Super Bowl. If they finally can beat us, then they can talk, they can feel good. It's true, though. It's the truth. And trust me, I grew up in a house full of Iowa State people, so I understand what it looks like when we finally lose. They're extremely excited. So it's like, we always say this is their Super Bowl, so they're going to come to play as soon as they see that black and gold.
So I think this is going to go one of two ways. I think you're going to get one, like you kind of said, Dom, where it's going to be a game where it's the same as it ever was. Field goals are going to decide it. One side might get to 20 because if you look I think it's been 4 or 5 years since that 44-41 game. So it's been a low-scoring game. It was what, like 18 or somewhere.
2017,
Yeah, 17.
Yes,
So
I
it's
remember
been a
that.
while. That was the last time either side had an offense that was at least competent in this game. I think you're either going to get the same that you ever have with where it might be a race to 17, and I feel bad for saying this because I've had a lot of fun talking with you guys, but if Iowa keeps it rolling and that second half was not a mirage, I think you might get a chance to see Iowa put the hurt on them, because the big thing I noticed is, hey, Iowa State had 86 total rushing yards. Your leading rusher against North Dakota had, I think, 37. Iowa's defense gave up 56 as a team. So you're going to have to throw the ball around, whereas some of Iowa's strength is in their back seven. So you're going to have a pretty good game throwing the ball around and limit the mistakes that you mentioned. Otherwise, if Iowa's offense is even, let's say, decent, it could be one of those where maybe they don't get to 40 again, but you get a 28-31 to 31-3 or 31-6 if everything breaks Iowa's way and Iowa State's offense can't get going, because that's, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think the running game is going to prove too much of a factor, that Iowa State's going to have to sling it around maybe 35, 40 times in this one.
I will say that the only reason why that we had 86 yards mainly was because the defense was on the field for so much. So I do think that mainly we had 86 yards because at that point, the defense was on the field for so much, and North Dakota had 36 minutes of possession. So we really didn't have time to. So I guess I guess we really don't know if the run game.
It's
is
one
as
game.
bad
It's a
as
very
it.
small
Yeah,
sample
exactly.
size. So
yeah,
go ahead, Cody.
yeah, and again, speaking on that 86, we only ran 22 rushing plays. So even with that, you still got about 4 yards per carry. So very small samples. And again, Iowa State, we had a running back by committee. We had 5 guys with carries. We had obviously 5 carries, 36 yards. Carson Hansen at 6, Jalen Jackson with 4, Dylan Lee with 3, and Rocco Beck with 2. So it wasn't really obviously a great run game on paper. But that's because obviously Tyler said, we didn't really have the ball. And number 2, we didn't really run it that much. We only had 22 attempts. So you got it. Yeah, that's a very, very small sample size, and it's week 1. So let's just, for Iowa State fans, pump the brakes. It's week 1. Do not worry. This always happens. Week 1, we don't usually do too much. So don't worry.
All right, Tyler, Cody, thanks so much for doing this joint Cyhawk episode. Let them know where they can find you on socials, and where they can, obviously, if you're listening in the Bleav in Iowa State feed, you know where to find them. But for those that don't, plug what you need to plug.
All right, so on Twitter, we can find Bleav in Iowa State at Bleav in Iowa State. On YouTube, the Bleav in Iowa State podcast. Facebook page, Bleav in Iowa State, TikTok, Bleav in Iowa State Pod, and on Instagram, Bleav in Iowa State. So all handles are all the same.
Awesome. And you want to put your personal ones out there as well, or you guys just
Yeah, no, I will. My Twitter, if you want to reach out to me, is at SciTieGuy. So that's mine.
Yep. And then for me, you can find me at File Matt Campbell. So FAUX, Matt with 1 T, and obviously Campbell.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Should be a fun one Saturday.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Appreciate everyone listening. For Dom and I, will be back on Friday with our third co-host, Logan Blackman. Excited to get the 3 of us going with that one. Dom, anything before we send it home?
Go Hawks, baby.
Sounds good. Appreciate you guys again, and we'll see you Friday.
All right, go State.